namaskar. If you want to discover Afghanistan, this indeed is the book, The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Afghanistan always gives you that eerie feeling because of its very difficult terrain and the exploitation by Taliban. In The Kite Runner, the author, while narrating the story, even takes you through the length and breadth of Afghanistan in terms of its socio-political nuances. From an Indian perspective, it even highlights the similarities between the cultures of the two countries, and that makes the book even more interesting. The Kite Runner is the first novel by Afghan-American author Khaled Hosseini, published in 2003 by Riverhead Books. The price of this book in Amazon is rupees 319 for a print copy and rupees 179 for a Kindle one. It tells the story of Amir, a young boy, a Pashtun from the Wazir Akbar Khan district of Kabul, whose closest friend is Hassan of Hazara tribe and therefore considered a lesser human being in Afghanistan. The story is set against a background of tumultuous events from the fall of Afghanistan's monarchy through the Soviet military intervention or invasion, you could say, the exodus of refugees to Pakistan and United States, and the rise of Taliban regime. He considers The Kite Runner to be a father-son story that emphasizes familial aspects of the narrative, an element that he has continued to use even in his later works. Themes of guilt and redemption feature prominently in the novel, with a pivotal scene depicting an act of sexual assault that happens against Hassan that Amir fails to prevent. The situation is the primary reason why Amir and Hassan, their friendship ends. The latter half of the book centers on Amir's attempts to make amends for his mistake by rescuing Hassan's son some 2 decades later. The Kite Runner became a bestseller after being printed in paperback and was popularized in various book clubs. It was a #1 New York Times bestseller for over 2 years and over some 7 million copies sold in the United States alone. Reviews were generally positive, though parts of the plot drew significant controversy in Afghanistan. A number of adaptations were created following publication, including a 2007 film of the same name, several stage performances, and a graphic novel. The book classifies under historical fiction and completes in some 372 pages. Friends, I particularly liked the flow, the language, the construction of sentences, and the analogies used in certain sentences to explain what the author intended to say in the book. The detailing is superb, and so are the coincidences. The language is, of course, high-flown, verbose, but to give parochial effect, the author has often used local Afghan words. Upon completing the book, an Indian reader will be able to make out the similarities between the cultures of India and Afghanistan, even when he is going to be totally involved in the story. The author has touched the word Hindi at one place in a slightly derogatory manner, which of course is not of great consequence, but yes, he has made some kind of a sarcastic comment on Hindi. Khaled Hosseini worked as a medical internist at Kaiser Hospital in Mount View, California for several years before publishing The Kite Runner. In 1999, Hosseini learned through a news report that Taliban had banned kite flying in Afghanistan, a restriction he found particularly cruel when that was the biggest sport of Afghanistan. The news struck a personal chord in him, as he had grown up with the sport while living in Afghanistan. He was motivated to write a 25-page short story about two boys who fly kites in Kabul. Hosseini submitted these copies to, or rather his copies to Esquire and the New Yorker, but both were rejected. He later discovered the manuscript in his garage in March 2001 and began to expand it into a novel format at the good suggestion of one of his friends. According to Hosseini, the narrative became much darker than he originally intended. His editor, Cindy Spiegel, helped him rework the last third of his manuscript, something she describes as relatively common for the first novel. As with Hosseini's subsequent novels, The Kite Runner covers a multi-generational period and focuses on the relationship between parents and their children. The latter was unintentional. Hosseini developed an interest in the theme while in the process of writing. He later divulged that he frequently came up with pieces of the plot by drawing pictures of it. For example, he did not decide to make Amir and Hassan brothers until after he had doodled it. Like Amir, the protagonist of the novel, Hosseini too was born in Afghanistan and left the country as a youth, not returning until 2003. Thus, he was frequently questioned about the extent of autobiographical aspects of the book. In response, he said, "When I say some of it is me, then people look unsatisfied. The parallels are pretty obvious, but I felt a few things ambiguous because I wanted to drive the book clubs crazy." Having left the country around the time of the Soviet invasion, he felt a certain amount of survivor's guilt. Whenever I read stories about Afghanistan, my reaction was always tinged with guilt. A lot of my childhood friends had a very hard time. Some of our cousins died. One died in a fuel truck trying to escape Afghanistan, an incident that Hosseini fictionalizes in The Kite Runner. Talk about guilt. He was one of the kids I grew up with flying kites. His father was shot. Regardless, he maintains that the plot is fictional. Later, when writing his second novel, A Thousand Splendid Suns, then titled Dreaming in Titanic City, Hosseini remarked that he was happy that the main characters were women, as it should put the end to the autobiographical question once and for all. Riverhead Books published The Kite Runner, ordering an initial printing of some 50,000 copies in hardback. It was released on May 29, 2003, and the paperback edition was released a year later. Hosseini took a year-long absence from practicing medicine to promote the books, signing copies, speaking at various events, and raising funds for Afghan causes. Originally published in English, The Kite Runner was later translated into 42 languages for publication in some 33 countries. In 2013, Riverhead released the 10th anniversary edition with a new gold-rimmed cover and a foreword by Hosseini. That same year, on May 21, Khaled Hosseini published another book called And the Mountains Echoed. The book deserves 8 out of 10. I feel it's quite a must-read, and especially if you want to know what Afghanistan is, as not too many people have been there because of the circumstances, the situations that prevailed in this country for a very long period of time now. So within the story, you get a good fix or feel about the place, the country called Afghanistan. So friends, that's all for today. Goodbye and see you friends.